A state of emergency declared in Honduras.
El Salvador was a nightmare with gangs like MS-13 and Barrio 18 turning streets into killing fields.
Can't really be solved by a simple crackdown, but is it at least a powerful start, if there can be a solution?
With murders every hour, families were living in terror, scared to leave home.
El Salvador's president said he will accept deported criminals for a fee.
Then in just a few years, the murder rate crashed by 98%. Nayib Bukele's brutal plan wiped out gangs, but it's got a dark side.
The agreement is that the people who would go to prisons would be convicted of crimes.
How did he pull it off? Stick around to find out now. Emergency crackdown unleashed. The streets of El Salvador were a death trap as of March 2022. Gangs like MS-13 unleashed a bloodbath, killing 87 people in just 3 days. Bodies piled up, fear choked the nation, and nobody felt safe.
How likely is it that migrants from here are going to be sent there?
Then President Nayib Bukele struck back with a plan so fierce it shook the country to its core. On March 27th, he declared a state of emergency, giving police and soldiers unchecked power. No warrants needed, no trials promised. They arrested anyone who even looked like a gang member. Tattoos, social media posts, or just a tip could land you in cuffs. By November 2023, over 80,000 people were locked up, which was more than 1% of the nation's 6.5 million citizens.
About harsh conditions in those prisons, Lilia Luciano got a look.
In the first 2 months alone, 33,000 arrests crushed gang networks. Extortion rackets, which bled businesses dry, stopped cold. Bus drivers, once forced to pay war taxes to gangs, could finally breathe. The murder rate plummeted from 104 per 100,000 in 2015 to just 1.9 by 2024, making El Salvador safer than most of Latin America. Streets once ruled by gunmen filled with families again. Bukele's approval soared to 90%, with 95% of Salvadorans backing his security measures, according to La Prensa Gráfica. But the cost was brutal. Constitutional rights vanished. Suspects could be held indefinitely without seeing a judge. Entire neighborhoods were locked down, with soldiers checking IDs at checkpoints.
Get a tattoo like this if you're not a gang member?
Human rights groups like Cristosal reported thousands of innocent people swept up in raids, some never heard from again. One woman, Patricia, told PBS her partner Victor was jailed without evidence, leaving their family shattered. Bukele's grip tightened as his allies in Congress extended the emergency 20 times with no debate. Critics called it a power grab, but for many, the peace was worth it. What drove Bukele to such extremes? The answer lies in the gangs that ruled El Salvador for decades. Get ready, because the story of MS-13's rise is next, and it's a chilling tale you won't believe. MS-13's brutal rise. In the 1980s, Los Angeles was a pressure cooker for Salvadoran refugees. Young Salvadorans who were fleeing a civil war that killed 75,000 and displaced 1 million landed in rough neighborhoods like Pico Union. They faced hostility from Mexican gangs and racial prejudice. Out of this chaos, a group of teens formed Mara Salvatrucha, or MS-13, to protect their own. At first, they were just heavy metal fans, smoking weed and listening to Black Sabbath. But survival demanded more. By 1984, they ditched the Stoners label, adopting MS-13 after aligning with the Mexican mafia, the 13 nodding to the letter M. Everything changed in the 1990s. U.S. immigration laws tightened under Clinton, deporting 20,000 criminals to Central America between 2000 and 2004, including 1,300 MS-13 members in 2018 alone.
When you heard that Bukele offered to receive
These deportees, hardened by LA's streets, brought gang culture to El Salvador's weak post-war society. With no jobs and a corrupt police force, young men joined fast. MS-13 grew from a scrappy crew to a monster, with 60,000 members by 2015 controlling neighborhoods through fear. They extorted shopkeepers, charging protection fees. In fact, they got about $6,000 a month for one bus company. Refuse and you'd face a machete or worse. Their violence was relentless. MS-13's motto, which was kill, rape, control, wasn't just talk. In El Salvador, they accounted for 80% of violent deaths, turning the country into a slaughterhouse with a murder rate of 104 per 100,000 in 2015. Initiation meant a 13-second beatdown or even murder to prove loyalty. Kids as young as 11, often orphaned or homeless, were forced to join or die. One recruit, a 13-year-old named Chele, joined after Chicano gangs beat her at school. She later told El Faro she felt trapped, with no way out. Desertion meant death, and tattoos marked members for life. MS-13's reach went global. By the early 2000s, they operated in 46 U.S. states, Canada, Mexico, and Central America, running drugs, human trafficking, and stolen car rackets. In El Salvador, they set up military-style camps using rifles and grenades from their Civil War days. Their cliques, or cliques, worked independently, making them hard to stop. In 2012, a truce with Barrio 18 cut homicides briefly, but it was a sham. Gangs used it to tighten their grip, extorting $4 billion annually from businesses, according to the Salvadoran Central Reserve Bank. When the truce collapsed in 2013, murders soared again. Life under MS-13 was hell.
I worry about the idea that people who are undesirable in the United States.
Families couldn't send kids to school without risking kidnapping. Shopkeepers shut down rather than pay. One mother, Maria, told the BBC her son was killed for refusing to join. MS-13 didn't just rule streets, they owned fear itself. Have you ever faced that kind of terror? Drop yes in the comments. But how did El Salvador fight back? The next part about the laws that locked up thousands will shock you with their power. Laws that jailed thousands. When MS-13's killing spree left 87 dead in 3 days, Nayib Bukele didn't just fight back. He rewrote the rules. In March 2022, El Salvador's Congress passed laws so tough they turned the country into a dragnet. The unlawful association law was the hammer. Before, police needed proof of a crime. Now, just looking like a gang member, think tattoos or a suspicious Instagram post could get you arrested. By January 2023, a leaked government database showed 61,000 people jailed under this law alone, with 39,000 nabbed for vague gang ties, not specific crimes. Bukele's laws hit hard and fast. Gang membership became a crime, carrying 20 to 30 years in prison. No parole. House arrest gone. If you were caught helping a gang, even passing a note, you faced the same fate. Kids as young as 12 could now be tried as adults, a move to stop gangs from recruiting teens. In 2022, over 2,000 minors were arrested, some for just living in the wrong neighborhood. One father, Jose, told Al Jazeera his 14-year-old son was grabbed for wearing baggy clothes. No evidence, no trial. The laws didn't care. The results were staggering. By late 2022, 33,000 arrests in 2 months gutted gang operations. Extortion payments, once $4 billion a year, dried up. Bus drivers who paid gangs $50 daily worked without fear.
There's nobody that survives an MS-13 attack. If they intend to kill you, you're gonna die.
The murder rate dropped from 18.2 per 100,000 in 2021 to 7.8 in 2022 per government stats. Checkpoints and raids locked down cities like San Miguel, where 1,000 police and 7,000 soldiers swept through in one operation. Gangs couldn't coordinate. Lookouts vanished, drug routes stalled. Communities felt alive again, with markets buzzing and kids playing freely. But the cost was grim. Human Rights Watch reported 1,600 cases of abuse, including beatings and denied medical care. Innocent people got caught. Barbers, vendors, even students, jailed without proof. Mass trials with up to 500 defendants at once ignored evidence. In San Salvador, one judge processed 200 cases in a day, no questions asked. Families waited months for news, some never got it. Bukele's supporters, 95% of Salvadorans per polls, cheered the safety, but critics saw a police state rising. So what made these laws so effective against another gang? Barrio 18's story is next, and it's one you won't want to miss. If you're hooked by this video so far, smash that like button and drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think of Bukele's plan? Let's hear it. Barrio 18's reign of fear. Back in the 1980s, Los Angeles' MacArthur Park was a melting pot of struggle. Salvadoran, Honduran, and Guatemalan immigrants escaping wars that tore apart Central America settled there. Among them, Barrio 18, also called the 18th Street Gang, took root. Unlike MS-13, which started as a Salvadoran crew, Barrio 18 began as a Mexican gang in the 1950s but opened its doors to anyone by the 80s. This shift let young Central Americans join, and soon Barrio 18 became a rival to MS-13, just as brutal. By 2015, it had 30,000 members across El Salvador, dwarfed only by MS-13's 60,000, according to police estimates.
El Salvador can receive deportees of all kinds. We've seen in Guantanamo, we thought it was going to be people.
When U.S. deportations hit in the 1990s, sending 20,000 criminals back to Central America, Barrio 18 exploded in El Salvador. Deportees trained in LA's gang wars found a country ripe for chaos. Poverty hit 40% of people and police were underfunded. Barrio 18 set up shop, taxing buses and taxis $100 a week just to operate. One driver, Carlos, told Reuters he paid $1,200 a month to avoid a bullet. Refusal meant death. Gangs killed 200 drivers between 2010 and 2015. They controlled whole neighborhoods, setting checkpoints to extort residents. A single mother, Ana, said her corner store closed after Barrio 18 demanded half her profits. Violence was their language. Barrio 18's turf wars with MS-13 left 3,800 dead in 2012 alone, per government records. They didn't just fight rivals, civilians suffered too. In Soyapango, a 17-year-old was beaten to death for crossing into their territory. His body left on a bus route as a warning. Their tattoos, often 18 or devil horns, marked loyalty but also made them targets. By 2013, Barrio 18 split into two factions, revolutionaries and Sureños, fighting each other as fiercely as MS-13. This chaos fueled 70% of El Salvador's homicides, with 4,000 murders that year. Their power wasn't just muscle. Barrio 18 ran drugs like cocaine and meth. Across borders, earning millions, they bribed cops and politicians, with one mayor caught funneling $10,000 monthly to gang leaders per El Faro. Schools became recruiting grounds. Kids as young as 10 were forced to smuggle weapons or act as lookouts. One teen, Miguel, told the BBC he joined to eat, having no family. Refusing meant a shallow grave. Businesses lost $4 billion yearly to extortion, crippling the economy. Streets emptied after dark. Parents kept kids home, fearing abduction. A 2012 truce between Barrio 18 and MS-13 cut murders for a bit, down to 2,500 in 2013. but it was a lie. Gangs used the pause to grow stronger, setting up secret smuggling routes. When the truce collapsed, violence roared back, hitting 6,600 killings by 2015. Barrio 18 didn't just scare people, they owned their lives. But where did these gang members end up? The next part, inside El Salvador's mega prison, will shock you to your core. Inside the mega prison. In January 2023, El Salvador unveiled a fortress that sent chills down spines. The Terrorism Confinement Center, or CCOT, sits in Tecoluca, 45 miles from San Salvador, built to cage 40,000 gang members. This mega prison, the largest in Latin America, is Bukele's iron fist made of concrete. 8 massive pavilions surrounded by 9-meter concrete walls and 15,000-volt electric fences hold cells so cramped that 70 men share 2 toilets and 80 bunks with no mattresses. By July 2023, 12,500 inmates filled its halls, many from MS-13 and Barrio 18 per government reports. Life inside is relentless. Inmates get 30 minutes daily to leave their cells for exercise or a quick Bible reading. The rest of the time, they're locked in, lights blazing 24/7. Guards control the water, and food like rice, beans, maybe an orange, slides through a slot. No visitors, no letters, no rehab programs. Solitary confinement awaits rule breakers, 15 days in a windowless box with a pinhole for light. One prisoner, Juan, told Cristosal he hadn't seen his family in months, his pleas ignored. Human Rights Watch noted 200 deaths in custody by mid-2023, some from beatings or neglect. The prison's design screams control. Over 1,000 guards, soldiers, and police patrol with rifles and riot shields. Cameras watch every corner and metal detectors block contraband. Getting in means passing airport-style checks, shoes off, body scanned. Gang leaders covered in tattoos face the harshest fate, labeled terrorists with no chance of parole. Mass trials, sometimes 500 defendants at once, speed through cases. In one San Salvador court, a judge sentenced 300 people in a day, barely glancing at evidence, per Amnesty International. Families outside wait in agony, some never hearing back. Yet for many Salvadorans, CCOT is a triumph. Before it opened, prisons ran at 120% capacity, with gangs ruling from inside. Now, streets are safer. In San Salvador's historic center, a cop told Reuters that gang lookouts vanished 2 weeks after CCOT opened. Markets reopened and kids played in plazas once controlled by gangs. A shopkeeper, Rosa, said she stopped paying $200 weekly in extortion. Her business thriving again. Polls show 90% of Salvadorans back Bukele's crackdown, seeing CCOT as proof he means business. Tourists even visit historic sites now, a stark change from 2015's murder spree. Still, the price is steep. Innocent people, like a 16-year-old student jailed for a tattoo he got at 13, rot in cells per El Faro reports. Families protest outside, holding photos of loved ones. Have you ever lost someone to a system that didn't care? Comment "I have" below. But can Bukele's model work elsewhere? Honduras tried it, and the next part will reveal why their plan crashed hard. Why copycats failed. Honduras tried to copy El Salvador's gang crackdown, but it crashed hard. In December 2022, President Xiomara Castro declared a state of emergency, mimicking Nayib Bukele's playbook. She targeted extortion in Tegucigalpa and San Pedro Sula, suspending rights like freedom of movement. Police could arrest anyone without a warrant, just like in El Salvador. By June 2023, Castro announced a mega prison for 20,000 inmates modeled after CCOT. But the results? A flop. Honduras arrested 32,000 people, yet 95% were released for lack of evidence, per the Asociación para una Sociedad Más Justa. Extortion kept climbing, and murders stayed high, 35 per 100,000 in 2023 compared to El Salvador's 1.9. Why did it fail? Honduras faced a messier threat. El Salvador's gangs, MS-13 and Barrio 18, operated in tight urban pockets, easy to target with mass arrests. Honduras's crime is more scattered. Gangs, drug cartels, and even corrupt cops run extortion rackets. A 2023 report from the United States Institute of Peace noted Honduras's weak police force, with only 14,000 officers for 10 million people, lacked the training and numbers to pull off Bukele's dragnet. El Salvador had 23,000 police and 15,000 soldiers, plus a smaller population of 6.5 million. Bukele's tight control over Congress also let him extend his emergency 20 times without pushback. Castro faced a divided government, stalling her reforms. Then there's the prison itself. Honduras's planned mega prison on a remote island was a logistical nightmare. Moving food and guards by boat spiked costs, and the site threatened local wildlife, drawing protests. El Salvador's Copycat, built for $115 million in Tecoluca, was on the mainland, easier to supply. By 2024, Honduras's prison was still unfinished, with no clear budget, while Copycat held 15,000 inmates by November 2024, per prison director Belarmino Garcia. Honduras's jails, already packed at 150% capacity, couldn't handle mass arrests without collapsing. Other countries tried too, with no luck. Ecuador's President Daniel Noboa announced two 12,000-inmate prisons in 2024, inspired by Copycat, but gang violence surged, 2,700 murders in 2023, up 30% from 2022. Ecuador's cartels, tied to global drug networks, were tougher to pin down than El Salvador's street gangs. Guatemala's candidates promised mega prisons, but corruption and weak courts stopped them cold. In Colombia, Medellin's mayor pushed for a Bukele-style jail, but President Gustavo Petro slammed the idea, favoring negotiation with gangs. None matched El Salvador's unique edge, a small, urbanized country with one man calling all shots. Bukele's model leaned on fear and control. His 90% approval rating per 2023 polls gave him a free hand. Honduras's Castro, with 40% approval, faced protests over human rights. El Salvador's arrests stuck, 84,000 by March 2025, with few released. Honduras freed most detainees, as courts demanded evidence Bukele ignored. Human Rights Watch reported 1,600 abuse cases in El Salvador's jails, but Salvadorans cheered safer streets. Honduras saw no such payoff. Extortion rackets still drained $700 million yearly from businesses, per local estimates. The lesson? Bukele's plan worked because El Salvador was small, centralized, and united behind him. Copycats like Honduras faced bigger lands, weaker systems, and messier crimes. Mass arrests and mega prisons sound tough, but without the right setup, they're just noise. El Salvador's streets are calm now, but at a cost. Innocent people locked away, rights shredded. Other nations couldn't stomach that trade-off, or they simply couldn't make it stick. Bukele's formula isn't a blueprint. It's a one-off tied to his iron grip and a desperate nation's trust. We've reached the end. Like this video, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel for more, and comment your thoughts on Bukele's plan. Join us for more gripping stories.